April 8th, 1943, 270,000 feet above occupied France. The air is thin enough to burn your lungs, the light so sharp it cuts every edge of aluminum into silver fire. Through the curved glass of his Focke-Wulf, 190 Oberleutnant Ralph Hermchen watches them climb slow, lumbering and utterly ridiculous. 16 of them rising from the haze below like swollen whales breaking the surface. He presses the transmit key on his stick and laughs into the oxygen hiss. "They're sending us flying milk bottles," he says, the words soaked in arrogance. Across the frequency, other voices answer with dry chuckles. To the Luftwaffe aces of 1943, the American P-47 Thunderbolt is a mistake with wings, a machine designed by someone who never learned the poetry of flight. From his altitude, Hermchen can see everything: the fat fuselages, the greenhouse canopies, the stubby wings that look far too short to carry that bulk through the air. He can almost feel the effort of those massive propellers clawing at the sky, trying to lift 7 tons of metal higher than it has any right to go. The German fighters circle above like sharks, sleek, precise, confident. They have spent years carving the air over Poland, France, Britain, Russia. They are hunters who have forgotten what fear feels like. Below them, the American formation crawls upward, 16 brand new Thunderbolts of the 4th Fighter Group. Inside each cockpit sits a pilot who has never seen combat. Sweat runs down their necks beneath leather helmets. The oxygen masks hide their faces, but not their breathing, the short, nervous rhythm of men about to meet reality. Their leader, Major Donald Blakesley, stares at the instruments and says nothing. He already knows what the Germans don't. This airplane is not meant to dance. It's meant to survive. The camera moves in on the details. The 8 .50 caliber Brownings slung in the wings, the 3 .400 rounds locked and weighting the armor plate behind the seat, the engine that rumbles like a caged animal. Every number in its design adds up to something the Germans can't yet see: a new equation of air combat where strength, altitude and firepower matter more than elegance. Hermchen tilts his Focke-Wulf into position, sun flashing off the canopy. He sees the American planes struggling for altitude and feels a rush of contempt. This will be easy. He rolls inverted, pushes the nose down, and the sky begins to spin. For a moment, his laughter fills the radio net. But beneath him, those heavy shapes keep climbing, steady, deliberate, unshaken. There is a kind of silence that exists only before history changes. It hangs there now between the hunters and their prey, between confidence and consequence. The Germans think they're about to teach a lesson. What they don't know is that the School of War is about to open under new management. Before this day ends, that laughter will fade into static. And the P-47 Thunderbolt, the flying milk bottle that shouldn't have flown at all, will begin its long, thunderous rewrite of the sky. June 1940. Europe is burning. France has fallen, and across the Atlantic America watches the map turn black. Inside a modest office at Republic Aviation, a Georgian-born engineer named Alexander Kartveli studies the urgent request from the US Army Air Corps. They want a high-altitude interceptor capable of fighting the Luftwaffe's best. Kartveli doesn't build what they ask for, he builds what they'll need. The XP-47B that emerges from his drafting table is not a sleek duelist, it's a steel animal swollen with muscle and purpose. To some it looks absurd. The turbo supercharger system runs like veins through its belly, feeding a 20000 horsepower Pratt & Whitney R 2,800 Double Wasp engine. The fuselage bulges to contain it all, giving the plane a pregnant, almost grotesque profile. But Kartveli sees something others don't, a machine that can climb where oxygen dies, fight where others choke, and take hits that would turn any normal fighter into falling ash. When the prototype first rolls out onto the runway in May 1941, the test pilots laugh. "It's too big to fly," one says. Kartveli just nods. Then the plane takes off and keeps climbing steady and defiant, punching through the thin air until the altimeter spins past 25,000 feet. The Double Wasp roars like an industrial heart, its turbo supercharger, feeding it power as if the atmosphere itself were endless. What they're witnessing is not an airplane, it's the birth of a philosophy. America is building differently now. While Germany bets on lightness, precision, and perfection, The United States chooses brute endurance, repetition, and mass. In factories stretching from Long Island to Evansville, sparks fly as women in coveralls, rivet wing panels, and stamp engine mounts. They don't talk about glory or dogfights. They talk about torque specs, output quotas, shifts ending at midnight. This is war translated into machinery faith, built with steel and oil instead of prayer. Kartvelli's engineers call it the jug, half affection, half mockery. It's ungainly on the ground, slow to climb and greedy for fuel. But up high it becomes something else, a fortress with propellers, a weapon designed to outlast. Every inch of it speaks one language: survival. Behind the pilot sits a slab of armor thick enough to stop cannon fire. Around the engine, deflector plates turn fatal hits into sparks. Even the guns are heated electrically to prevent freezing at altitude. It's not elegant, it's efficient. Kartvelli once told his team, "It will be a dinosaur, but a dinosaur with good proportions." He wasn't wrong. The P-47 would never waltz with the Spitfires or dance with the Messerschmitts. It wasn't built to. It was built to take the punishment of the gods and keep flying. By the time Europe's skies turned red again, the jug was ready. Heavy, overbuilt, underestimated. The Germans would soon see what happens when a machine is designed not for grace but for survival. And in that design lay the quiet genius of a nation preparing to win through endurance, not elegance. Bridgeport, Connecticut. Autumn of 1942. The training fields smell of oil, sweat, and fear. The men of the 56th Fighter Group are learning to tame the beast that Kartvelli built, and the beast is not forgiving. The P-47 is too powerful for its own good 7 tons of steel that bucks like a wild animal. Its torque can flip it over on takeoff. Its landing gear bites at the ground with cruel precision. The instructors whisper a grim joke. The Thunderbolt kills more Americans in training than Germans in combat. Between September and January, 41 aircraft are wrecked. 18 pilots die before ever seeing the enemy. They die in fields and on runways, caught between gravity and horsepower. Major Hubert Hub Zemke, the man in charge, buries his friends and writes terse notes to headquarters. The airplane is dangerous if misunderstood. But so is every weapon that wins wars. He refuses to give up on it. Instead, he forces his men to understand its rhythm, to stop flying like artists and start flying like engineers. The P-47 doesn't respond to finesse. It respects physics. Zemke drills that into their heads. Don't fight it, harness it. Use its weight to your advantage. Let gravity work for you, not against you. If you dive, don't pull too soon. If you climb, let the turbocharger do the work. The men begin to adapt, building muscle memory instead of trust. They learn to feel the vibration before a torque roll, to sense the moment when the air itself hardens against the wings. And then something changes. The same machine that killed them in training starts to obey. The pilots who survive their first dozen flights talk about it like a living creature, angry, unpredictable, but loyal if treated right. Robert S. Johnson, a farm boy from Oklahoma, takes his first full-power climb and comes down trembling. "It felt like strapping myself to a locomotive," he writes later. The power didn't ask permission. You just held on and tried to steer it toward the sky. Each day the men fly, crash, rebuild, and fly again. The airfield becomes a graveyard of lessons learned in blood and aluminum. But behind every wreck lies progress. Zemke watches his pilots begin to move differently, calmer hands, cleaner dives, sharper instincts. They stop fearing the jug and start trusting its armor, its engine, its sheer will to survive. When winter breaks, the 56th is ready. Their airplanes are no longer monsters, they're partners. Machines that demand respect, not affection. And the men who once cursed their size now see them for what they are, weapons of endurance in a war that will test who can take the most punishment and still fly home. The Thunderbolt had drawn blood from its own pilots to teach them how to live. By the time they left Connecticut, they weren't just flying an airplane, they were mastering a philosophy. In war, survival isn't elegance, it's stubbornness. April and May of 1943. The Thunderbolt finally meets the Luftwaffe, and reality hits harder than any bullet. Over the fields of northern France, the big American fighters climb clumsily into the thin light, still learning what kind of machine they truly are. Above them, the Focke-Wulfs descend in perfect formation, sleek, confident, predatory. When the first tracers cut the air, the outcome seems decided before it even begins. The Germans carve through the formation like surgeons. The P-47 seconds can't turn with them, can't climb with them, can't even stay in the same fight. On the radio, laughter bleeds through the static, short, sharp bursts of mockery. They fly like trucks, one voice says. Pregnant cows, adds another. Within weeks, the statistics confirm the humiliation 14 Thunderbolts lost for only 3 confirmed German kills. Even the British, watching from their nimble Spitfires, whisper that maybe the Americans have brought the wrong airplane to war. But the numbers don't tell the whole story. Some of those dead Thunderbolts crawl home, shredded, leaking on fire and still flying. One lands with 21 cannon hits and over 100 bullet holes. Another loses half its elevator yet refuses to fall. Mechanics stare at the wreckage in disbelief, running hands over ruptured armor and bent propeller blades. Anything else would have been dust, one mutters. The pilots begin to understand their airplane doesn't dance. It endures. Major Hub Zemke studies gun camera film, sees where they went wrong. Don't fight their fight, he tells his men. We can't turn tighter, but we can fall faster. Use what we have. In smoky briefing rooms, the tone shifts from despair to adaptation. The P-47's weight, once a curse, becomes a weapon. Altitude becomes safety. Speed becomes strategy. The Germans don't notice the change, not yet. They still see clumsy giants struggling to climb, unaware that those giants are learning to turn gravity itself into a blade. The laughter continues on the radio, but it sounds different now. Thinner, forced, like men laughing at ghosts. By the end of May, the first cracks appear in German confidence. A Thunderbolt that should have been easy prey dives out of reach, then reappears from above like thunder out of a clear sky. Its 8 Brownings fire for 2 seconds, and a Messerschmitt disappears in a flash of orange and falling debris. On the ground, pilots review the film again and again, trying to understand what they just witnessed. The lesson is simple, brutal, and final. The P-47 may not win by grace. It wins by refusing to die. June 26, 1943, Northern France. The sky above Lille burns silver in the morning sun as 48 P-47 Thunderbolts of the 56th Fighter Group turn for home. They've just finished escorting bombers and are running low on fuel. Engines hum, steady radios, quiet. Then out of the sun, 16 Focke-Wulf, 190 seconds dive JG-26, the best Germany has left. The trap is perfect. Second Lieutenant Robert S. Johnson is at the back of the formation when the world explodes. 20mm shells hammer his aircraft, ripping metal like paper. One detonates behind the propeller hub, another punches through the canopy, spraying oil and glass across his face. The cockpit fills with smoke. His leg burns. The stick shudders in his hands. He tries to bail out, but the canopy is jammed, fused, shut by a shell that exploded in the track. He is trapped inside a dying machine at 27,000 feet, bleeding, half-blind and alone. Any other fighter would have come apart by now. But the Thunderbolt doesn't. The R-2000, 800 engine coughing smoke and oil still turns. Johnson steadies the stick levels out and begins the long, impossible crawl back toward England. The windscreen is black with oil. He can't see. He flies by instinct, by vibration, by the pulse of the engine that refuses to quit. Minutes stretch into eternity. Then a shadow crosses his wing. A lone Focke 190 slides into position behind him. The German pilot fires once 4 cannon shells slam into the fuselage. Johnson can hear them hit each one a hammer blow. He braces for the end, but the jug just keeps flying. The German fires again and again. Holes open across the wings. Smoke pours from the cowling, but the Thunderbolt still won't die. The German pilot closes in, staring in disbelief. Through shattered glass, Johnson can see his face, young, confident, now confused. Out of ammunition, the German pulls alongside salutes and peels away. He has seen something that breaks logic, a machine that should have fallen 10 minutes ago, still holding the sky. Johnson lands at Manston barely conscious. His crew stops counting bullet holes at 200. The control cables are half severed, the armor plate cratered, the engine nearly destroyed. And yet the airplane brought him home. When engineers examine the wreck, they realize they've underestimated their own creation. The Thunderbolt isn't just tough, it's a phenomenon. German intelligence refuses to believe the reports until witnesses from their own side confirm it. The laughter from April is gone. In its place is something colder, respect mixed with fear. That day over France changes everything. The Americans stop trying to fly the Thunderbolt like a European fighter. They start flying it like what it is, a weapon that trades grace for survival, speed for fire, and elegance for endurance. Robert Johnson becomes the proof that the P-47's true armor isn't just steel and rivets, it's the refusal to quit. The war in the air has a new rule now. It's not the fastest that wins. It's the one still flying when the sky goes silent. By July 1943, the men of the 56th Fighter Group had stopped fighting physics and started using it. They learned the truth that every P-47 pilot had to face: you don't dogfight in a Thunderbolt, you hunt. Major Hubert Hub Zemke rewrote the rulebook of aerial combat one chalkboard at a time. Don't turn with them, don't chase them, climb above them, dive through them, and let the weight do the work. What began as desperation turned into doctrine. At 30,000 feet, the sky belongs to the Jug. The Pratt & Whitney engine breathes in thin air where German planes gasp. When the throttle pushes forward, the aircraft doesn't leap, it falls with intent. Zemke's men call it boom and zoom. Roll inverted, drop the nose, and gravity becomes your co-pilot. The airframe howls, controls stiffen and speed, climbs past 500 miles an hour. At the bottom of the dive, the pilot steadies his hands for just 2 seconds, that's all it takes. 8 Browning. 50 seconds converge on a 6-foot circle of destruction. Nothing that enters that space survives. The first German pilots to face the new tactics never see it coming. They spot the heavy American fighters high above and assume they're easy prey. But when they turn upward to engage, the sky tears open. The Thunderbolts dive in silent formation, each one releasing a storm of fire and then climbing back into the blue before the enemy can react. Survivors describe it later as a wall of lead, a curtain of bullets that swallowed aircraft whole. One pilot called it like flying into a thunderstorm that kills you. Walker Bud Mahurin becomes one of the first American aces in Europe, using the Jug's newfound strength. His gun camera footage tells the story better than words. Frames of German fighters dissolving into fragments under converging fire. Pilots stop measuring success by turn radius and start counting seconds in a dive. 2 seconds. 6,000 rounds per minute, an entire war compressed into the sound of 8 guns speaking in unison. In the debriefing huts, Zemke lays it out plainly. You don't win by matching their moves, you win by rewriting the fight. The P-47 isn't graceful, but it's relentless. It dives faster, climbs higher, and shrugs off hits that would shatter a Spitfire. When it dives, nothing can catch it, not even gravity itself. By late summer, German confidence starts to bleed away. They still outnumber the Americans in experience, but not in altitude. When Thunderbolts appear above them, the hunters become the hunted. The laughter that once echoed through German radios has vanished. In its place, warnings Achtung Donnerbolts high. From that point forward, the rules of air combat over Europe change forever. Every dive becomes a judgment, every climb a promise. The Jug doesn't dance, it drops from heaven, strikes like a hammer, and disappears into the clouds. What was once mocked as a flying milk bottle has become what the Germans now whisper about with something close to superstition. A machine that falls from the sun and leaves only thunder behind. January 1944. The winter sky over Europe is pale and brittle, the kind of cold that makes metal groan. On the airfields of England, the next evolution of the Thunderbolt is waiting the P-47D-22. The change looks small at first, a new 13-foot Hamilton Standard paddle blade propeller, but the effect is seismic. The big blades bite into the air like oars on water, pulling the 7-ton fighter upward with new fury. The Jug can now climb with the predators it once fled. The Luftwaffe will discover that too late. When the first patrols cross the Channel, the Germans expect the same lumbering targets they mocked last year. But something's different. The American planes rise faster, turn sharper, and roar with a sound no one has heard before. The tips of the massive propellers are flirting with the speed of sound, producing a deep, rolling thunder that can be heard miles away. German soldiers on the ground call it Donnerschlag, the thunderclap. To them, it's not just noise, it's an omen. Up high, the new Thunderbolts move like falling mountains. Their dive speeds now exceed 550 miles an hour. Nothing catches them, not F1 190 seconds, not me 109 seconds. The German pilots watch helplessly as the P-47 seconds drop from the sun, guns blazing, then vanish into the cloud layers below. Each attack lasts seconds. Each burst tears airplanes apart. There is no warning, no counter, no survival. One pass and the sky empties. Major David Schilling leads his men through the clouds above Hanover. They spot a formation of twin-engine Me 110 seconds forming to attack the bombers. The Thunderbolts roll over and dive. The gunners on the German planes open fire streaks of red cutting the air. Schilling waits until the range closes to 300 yards, then squeezes the trigger. 8 Brownings scream. In 2 seconds, the lead Me 110 disintegrates wings, shearing away cockpit vaporized. The gunners never had a chance to reload. The remaining Germans break formation, their discipline shattered. From the ground, the sound comes first, the distant rumble like a storm. Then the dots appear diving almost vertically, fire pouring from their wings. The sky was alive, a German infantryman later wrote. We could feel the thunder in our bones. For the Luftwaffe, the realization comes slow and painful. The Americans are no longer climbing to survive, they are climbing to hunt. The heavy fighter they mocked as a mistake has become the spearhead of daylight domination. Above 25,000 feet, the Thunderbolt reigns absolute. And when it dives, it carries the voice of industrial power, the voice of a nation that has found its rhythm. By March, even veteran German aces begin to call it what it truly is, a machine that has no right to be that fast, that strong, or that deadly. But the proof is in the wreckage scattered across the fields of Europe. The Jug has found its final form, and the laughter that once filled the German radios has been replaced by silence. Only the thunder remains. June 1944, Normandy. The invasion has begun, and the sky belongs to the Americans. More than 500 P-47 Thunderbolts sweep above the beaches, a steel canopy over the greatest amphibious assault in history. Below them, ships' firemen, crawl tanks, grind through sand and blood. Above it all, the Jug circles watchful, relentless, ready to strike. The Luftwaffe tries to intervene, but it's suicide. German fighters rise from their bases and are torn apart before they even reach the coast. The sky belonged to the Thunderbolts, one surviving pilot later said. They were everywhere. You couldn't climb over them, you couldn't dive under them, you just disappeared in their gunfire. For the first time since 1939, Germany no longer controls the air. But the true transformation comes after D-Day, when the P-47 stops being a fighter and becomes something far more terrifying, a flying sledgehammer. With the P-51 Mustang taking over long-range escort duties, the Jug turns its fury downward. The fields, roads and railways of France become its hunting ground. Its 8 .50 caliber guns are joined by bombs and rockets. A standard loadout now carries 2 1,000-pound bombs under the wings and a 500-pounder beneath the fuselage, enough firepower to level a convoy in one pass. From high above, a Thunderbolt dives at near supersonic speed. The roar shakes windows miles away. A short burst, 2 seconds, 160 armor-piercing incendiary rounds shred a line of trucks. Then come the rockets, the bombs, the explosions that turn the ground into liquid flame. German troops call it the hammer of the gods. One officer in Normandy wrote in his diary, "They came so low we could see the pilots' faces. Their machine guns roared like the earth splitting open. When they left, nothing remained but burning skeletons of metal." Within weeks, the statistics defy imagination. In June alone, the 9th Air Force's Thunderbolts destroy more than 600 locomotives, nearly 4,000 trucks and over 500 tanks. Columns vanish. Bridges collapse. Trains are torn from their rails. The Wehrmacht can move only at night now, and even darkness feels unsafe. The mere sound of that deep rolling engine sends soldiers diving for ditches. But there's something deeper happening here, something beyond tactics or technology. The Thunderbolt isn't just killing machines, it's erasing the illusion of German invincibility. Every destroyed convoy, every burning tank is a message. Industrial power can be as lethal as genius. The Americans don't fight with elegance. They fight with abundance, with relentless pressure, with machines that simply refuse to break. By late July, the front lines are crawling east, and the P-47 seconds are already ahead of them. hunting, burning, reshaping the war from above. The Germans had laughed once. Now even their laughter is gone buried under the endless rumble of engines. On the roads of France, amid twisted steel and fire-blackened earth, the thunder keeps falling. Late 1944. The war in Europe is entering its final act, but the sky is still a battlefield. The Luftwaffe has one last miracle to offer the Messerschmitt, Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter. Sleek, fast and deadly, it can outrun anything with a propeller. For a few weeks, German pilots feel that familiar rush again, the sense of superiority they once took for granted. But what they don't know is that even in the age of jet power, the Thunderbolt still has one more lesson to teach. At 28000 feet, the air is glass clear and merciless. Lieutenant Colonel John C. Meyer spots the silver streak of an Me-262 slicing across the sky ahead. He pushes the jug into a dive. The altimeter spins, the engine screams, and the world blurs into a tunnel of wind and noise. The Thunderbolt's frame shudders but holds. The airspeed needle climbs past 480, then 500. The jet is fast, but the P-47 inches a dive is faster. Meyer closes to within 400 yards, steadies his hand and fires. 8 .50 caliber Brownings ignite at once. The German jet disintegrates mid-air fragments, tumbling through the sunlight like burning leaves. In the debriefing, Meyer writes one sentence that says it all. Firepower beats speed when speed runs out of sky. By 1945, the P-47 has evolved into something even the Germans hadn't imagined. The new M variant built to counter jets pushes 2,800 horsepower with water methanol injection capable of 470 miles an hour in level flight. It climbs like an avalanche and dives like gravity itself. But the Thunderbolt's true advantage isn't its power, it's its numbers. For every German jet that takes off a dozen, Thunderbolts are already airborne, fueled, armed and waiting. When one is lost, another is delivered the next day. American factories are producing more airplanes in a month than Germany can in a year. The Luftwaffe's pilots fight on brave but doomed. They have skill, they have experience, but they no longer have time. Training programs that once produced masters now churn out boys with less than 100 flight hours. Across the channel, new American pilots arrive weekly, each with 4 times that. When they meet over the frozen landscape of Germany, the outcome isn't a duel, it's a foregone conclusion. On the ground, soldiers hear the roar of the Thunderbolts and know what comes next. The 50 seconds tear through columns, trains and bunkers with mechanical precision. Bombs fall, rockets scream, and the sound that follows is the same as it's been since Normandy, that rolling apocalyptic thunder. The Germans call it Donnerschlag still, but now it's whispered with awe, not defiance. In the end, the Me-262, the great hope of German air power, can't change the math. It's too few, too late, and too fragile. The sky belongs to the machines that can take punishment and return fire. The P-47 does both day after day, mission after mission. When the Thunderbolt dives, it carries not just bullets and bombs, but the weight of an industrial empire that no longer knows how to lose. April 1945. The war is ending, but the sky is still filled with ghosts. Airfields that once roared with takeoffs now sit quiet, littered with wreckage and silence. The Luftwaffe exists only on paper, its veterans dead, captured or grounded without fuel. Yet even as the last missions fly, the sound of the Thunderbolt still rolls across the continent, a low metallic growl that once made whole armies flinch. The machine that Germany had laughed at 2 years earlier now circles above them as judge and executioner. In the final months, the numbers defy imagination. The Thunderbolt flies more than 2,000,000 combat sorties, destroys thousands of aircraft, tanks, locomotives and convoys. It has become not just an airplane, but a symbol, a reminder that wars are not won by beauty, but by endurance. Inside each cockpit sits a man who knows he is part of something larger than himself, a fusion of industry sweat and willpower that no other nation can match. They strap in flip switches and trust the beast beneath them, a machine that was once too heavy, too ugly, too misunderstood. After the war in quiet hangars and museums, the laughter of those early days lingers only in memory. German pilots, now grey-haired and reflective, speak of the jug, not with scorn but reverence. Adolf Galland, the man who once led them, would later say, "We laughed at it in 1943. But when we heard those guns, we stopped laughing. You never forget that sound. Today, one of those Thunderbolts still stands at the U.S. Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. Its olive drab paint is faded, its metal pitted with time. Beneath its wings lies a small plaque engraved with a quote taken from a captured German report. We laughed when we first saw them. We stopped laughing when they pointed those guns. It's not just history, it's a lesson. Underestimate no one. Mock nothing built with purpose. Because the moment you laugh at a machine forged in necessity, you've already begun to lose. The P-47 Thunderbolt was not born to impress, it was born to survive. And in surviving, it changed everything. It redefined what a fighter could be, what an industrial nation could achieve, and what fear could sound like when it came from the sky. If this story moved you, if you could feel the rumble of those engines and the weight of that history, make sure you subscribe to WW2 Combat Chronicles. Hit like, share this video with someone who loves history as much as you do, and join us as we uncover more untold stories from the greatest conflict humanity has ever faced. Because behind every number, every bullet hole, and every roar of thunder, there's a heartbeat, and it still echoes today.